In the summer of 1980, within the ancient walls of St. Cecilia's Abbey, 4 nuns vanished without a trace, leaving behind an echoing silence and a community gripped by fear and speculation. Decades later, a determined journalist, driven by a personal connection to the Abbey, begins to unravel the mystery, uncovering long-buried secrets and disturbing truths. But the deeper she digs, the more dangerous the truth becomes. What dark secrets are hidden within the Abbey walls? And who is willing to kill to keep them buried? Prepare to be captivated by a tale of mystery, suspense, and shocking revelations. To uncover the truth, you'll need to watch until the very end. Don't miss a single clue. If you enjoy a thrilling mystery, be sure to like this video, leave a comment with your theories, and subscribe to our channel for more captivating stories. The old stone walls of St. Cecilia's Abbey stood sentinel against the rolling hills of Montgomery County, Maryland, a silent testament to decades of devotion. Built in the austere Romanesque style, the Abbey exuded a sense of timelessness, its weathered facade and arched windows hinting at the secrets held within. Within those walls, in the summer of 1980, lived 4 women, bound by faith and cloistered from the world. Sister Anna, the stern but compassionate Mother Superior; Sister Margaret, the Abbey's gentle caretaker, her hands roughened by years of tending the gardens; Sister Emily, the quiet scholar, her days filled with ancient texts; and Sister Clare, the youngest, her spirit bright and her laughter echoing softly through the halls. Sister Anna, her face etched with the lines of responsibility, had guided the Abbey with unwavering resolve for over 20 years. Her presence was a comforting constant, her voice a low, steady cadence that resonated through the Abbey's quiet corridors. Sister Margaret, her eyes reflecting the serene beauty of the Abbey's grounds, found solace in the rhythm of nature, her calloused fingers nurturing life in the meticulously kept gardens. Sister Emily, her gaze often lost in contemplation, possessed a sharp intellect and a thirst for knowledge, her small cell overflowing with books and manuscripts that whispered of forgotten ages. And then there was Sister Clare, a vibrant soul barely out of her teens, her youthful energy a delicate counterpoint to the Abbey's solemnity. The morning of June 12th began like any other. The sisters rose before dawn, their soft footsteps padding through the dimly lit halls as they made their way to the chapel for lauds. The air was thick with the scent of incense and the hushed murmur of prayers. But when the time came for sext, the midday prayer, an unsettling silence hung over the Abbey. Sister Margaret was missing from the gardens. Sister Emily's cell was empty. Sister Clare's sketchbook lay open on her bed, its pages rustling in the breeze from the open window, and Sister Anna was nowhere to be found. Panic, swift and sharp, pierced the Abbey's tranquil facade. The remaining sisters searched frantically, their whispers growing into desperate calls. The local authorities were summoned, their arrival shattering the Abbey's solitude with the harsh glare of flashing lights and the urgent voices of law enforcement. The investigation that followed was thorough, yet utterly baffling. There were no signs of forced entry, no evidence of a struggle, no trace of the 4 women beyond the lingering scent of their presence. It was as if they had simply vanished into thin air, leaving behind an echoing silence that settled over St. Cecilia's like a shroud. The news of the nuns' disappearance spread like wildfire through Montgomery County, casting a pall over the close-knit communities. Fear mingled with confusion, and speculation ran rampant. Had they run away, abandoning their vows? Such a notion seemed preposterous to those who knew their unwavering devotion. Had they been abducted? But by whom, and for what purpose? The questions hung heavy in the air, unanswered and unsettling. The silence of St. Cecilia's became a haunting enigma, a dark stain on the county's otherwise peaceful landscape. The mystery lingered, a ghost story whispered in hushed tones, a wound that refused to heal. And 28 years later, the truth, buried beneath layers of time and unanswered questions, was about to resurface, threatening to shatter the silence once and for all. The disappearance of the nuns from St. Cecilia's Abbey left an indelible mark on Montgomery County, a wound that time had scabbed over but never fully healed. The initial shock gave way to a disquieting unease, a pervasive sense of something unfinished, something unresolved. The Abbey, once a beacon of tranquility, became a site of morbid fascination, drawing curious onlookers and fueling endless speculation. In the small town of Brookville, closest to the Abbey, the silence was particularly deafening. The townsfolk, accustomed to the rhythmic tolling of the Abbey bells and the gentle presence of the sisters, felt a void in their daily lives. The local diner, Mary's Place, which had been a favorite of Sister Margaret for her occasional trips into town to buy supplies for the garden, echoed with the absence of her quiet grace. Mary, the diner's owner, still kept a faded photograph of Sister Margaret tucked behind the counter, her kind smile a bittersweet reminder of what had been lost. She always ordered the apple pie, Mary would say to anyone who asked, her voice tinged with a lingering sadness. Said, it reminded her of her mother's. The theories surrounding the disappearance were as varied as they were unsettling. Some whispered of a secret cult, their rituals hidden within the Abbey walls. Others spoke of a disgruntled former employee seeking revenge. The more sensational tabloids even hinted at the supernatural, their headlines screaming of demonic possession and ghostly abduction. But for the local law enforcement, and for Detective Michael Reed in particular, the reality was a frustrating lack of answers. Reed, a young detective in 1980, had poured his heart and soul into the investigation. He had meticulously combed the Abbey grounds, interviewed countless witnesses, and followed every lead, no matter how tenuous. The case became his obsession, a shadow that clung to him long after the official investigation had been closed. Now retired, Reed lived a quiet life in a small cabin nestled in the Catoctin Mountains. His days were spent fishing in the nearby streams and tending to his vegetable garden, but the silence of the mountains could never quite drown out the echoes of St. Cecilia's. The unsolved mystery remained a thorn in his side, a constant reminder of his failure. His cabin was a testament to his lingering connection to the case. Boxes of files lined the walls, filled with crime scene photos, witness statements, and his own handwritten notes. A large map of the Abbey and its surrounding area hung above his desk, marked with faded circles and arrows, a silent record of his futile search. It's the not knowing that gets to you, Reed would often say, his voice raspy with age and a hint of bitterness. If there had been a body, a sign, anything, but there was nothing, just silence. The other townspeople carried their own burdens of unanswered questions. Old Mr. Henderson, who owned the hardware store, swore he saw a strange van parked near the Abbey the night before the disappearance, but he couldn't recall the license plate, and his testimony was dismissed as the ramblings of an elderly man. Teenagers whispered daring stories about sneaking onto the Abbey grounds, searching for clues in the dead of night, fueled by a mix of fear and excitement. The silence of St. Cecilia's had bred 1,000 different voices, a cacophony of speculation and rumor that only served to deepen the mystery. And, as the years turned into decades, the truth of what happened to Sister Anna, Sister Margaret, Sister Emily, and Sister Clare remained elusive, hidden somewhere in the shadows of the past, waiting to be unearthed. The year is 2008. The digital age hums with the constant flow of information, and true crime podcasts are experiencing a surge in popularity, captivating listeners with tales of unsolved mysteries and chilling narratives. In a small, cluttered apartment in Baltimore, Maryland, a young journalist named Emily Wilson hunches over her laptop, her brow furrowed in concentration. Empty coffee cups and stacks of research papers surround her, testament to her relentless dedication. Emily is driven, ambitious, and haunted by a past that fuels her passion for uncovering the truth. Her sharp intellect and tenacious spirit have earned her a reputation as a rising star in the world of investigative journalism. But she's seeking more than just headlines. She's searching for stories that matter, stories that can make a difference. The case of the missing nuns from St. Cecilia's Abbey has always held a strange fascination for her. It's more than just a cold case. It's a whisper from her own history. Her grandmother, Clara, had been a devout parishioner of the small church affiliated with the Abbey. Emily remembers childhood visits to Clara's house, the air thick with the scent of incense and the hushed reverence with which her grandmother spoke of the sisters. They were like angels on earth, Clara would say, her eyes misting over with a distant sadness. Especially Sister Margaret. She had the most beautiful garden. Emily never fully understood the depth of her grandmother's sorrow, the unspoken grief that seemed to cling to her memories of St. Cecilia's. It was only years later, while sifting through old family photos, that she stumbled upon a faded newspaper clipping detailing the nun's disappearance. The stark headline and the grainy image of the 4 smiling women sent a shiver down her spine. The mystery resonated with her, stirring a sense of unfinished business. Now, with the growing popularity of podcasts, Emily saw an opportunity to revisit the case, to breathe new life into the decades-old silence. She envisioned a series that would not only delve into the facts of the disappearance but also explore its impact on the community, the lingering questions, and the enduring power of hope. Her colleagues scoffed at first. "A bunch of missing nuns? That's your big story, Emily. It's ancient history. Nobody cares anymore." But Emily was undeterred. She knew there was more to the story than a simple disappearance. She felt it in her bones, a pull towards the truth that she couldn't ignore. She began her research, poring over old newspaper articles, police reports, and historical documents. She spent hours at the local library sifting through microfilm and dusty archives, piecing together the fragments of the past. As she delved deeper, the silence surrounding the case began to speak to her. She heard it in the gaps in the official narrative, in the unanswered questions, and in the lingering pain etched in the memories of those who still remembered. "There's something wrong here," she muttered to herself one night, surrounded by stacks of files. Something they missed. Something they didn't want to see. Emily knew she was embarking on a challenging journey, one that would lead her down a rabbit hole of secrets and unanswered questions. But she was ready. She had a voice, a platform, and an unyielding determination to uncover the truth, no matter how long it had been buried. The silence of St. Cecilia's was about to be broken. Emily's investigation led her deep into the archives of the Montgomery County Historical Society, a dimly lit room filled with the scent of aged paper and leather-bound volumes. Dust motes danced in the shafts of sunlight that pierced through the tall, narrow windows, illuminating the faded documents spread across the heavy oak tables. It was here, amidst the relics of the past, that Emily sought to reconstruct the world of St. Cecilia's Abbey in 1980. She spent hours poring over old photographs, their sepia tones capturing the austere beauty of the abbey and the serene faces of its inhabitants. The nuns, clad in their simple habits, appeared both ethereal and grounded, their expressions hinting at a life of quiet contemplation and unwavering devotion. Official records detailed the abbey's daily routine, the rhythmic chime of the bells marking the hours of prayer, the silent meals taken in the refectory, the meticulous chores that filled their days. They rose before dawn for lauds, their voices rising in unison in the ancient chants, their days structured by prayer and work. Sister Margaret tended to the sprawling gardens, her hands coaxing life from the rich Maryland soil. Sister Emily spent hours in the library, her mind immersed in theological texts and historical manuscripts. Sister Claire, the youngest, found solace in her art, her sketches capturing the beauty of the surrounding landscape and the quiet moments of the sisters' lives. And Sister Anna, the Mother Superior, guided them all with a firm but loving hand, her presence the unwavering anchor of their community. But as Emily delved deeper, she began to uncover hints of a more complex reality beneath the surface of piety and tranquility. In the margins of old journals, she found cryptic notes, their authors identified only by initials. A feels distant, one entry read. M seems troubled. Another note spoke of disagreements in the chapter and a growing tension. Local newspaper articles, while largely respectful, occasionally hinted at undercurrents of unease. A brief mention of a dispute with a neighboring landowner over property boundaries. A letter to the editor complaining about the Abbey's perceived isolationism and lack of community involvement. Whispers of a strict adherence to tradition that some found stifling. Emily also discovered that the Abbey, while seemingly self-sufficient, had relied on the generosity of a few wealthy benefactors. Among them, a prominent family whose name appeared repeatedly in the Abbey's financial records. The Redwoods. Silas Redwood's father, it turned out, had been a major donor, a fact that added another layer of intrigue to the present-day Redwoods' hostility. Through these fragments of the past, Emily began to piece together a more nuanced picture of life within St. Cecilia's. It was a world of faith and devotion, but also a world of human emotions, of personal struggles and, perhaps, of hidden conflicts. The silence of the Abbey, she realized, might be more complex than it initially seemed, a veil concealing secrets that had long been buried. The more she learned, the more Emily felt a sense of unease. The image of the four nuns, so serene in their photographs, began to be overlaid with shadows of doubt and unanswered questions. What were the tensions that simmered beneath the surface of their cloistered lives? What secrets did the ancient stones of St. Cecilia's hold? And what could have led to their sudden and inexplicable disappearance? Emily knew that to find the truth, she would have to delve beyond the official narrative to listen to the whispers of the past and to unravel the complex tapestry of relationships and events that had shaped the lives of the women of St. Cecilia's Abbey. Emily drove along the winding mountain roads, the air growing cooler and crisper as she ascended into the Catoctin Range. The landscape shifted from rolling farmland to dense forest, the trees forming a verdant canopy overhead, dappling the sunlight that filtered through. Her destination was a secluded cabin nestled deep within the woods, the home of retired detective Michael Reed. Reed had been the lead investigator on the St. Cecilia's case in 1980, and Emily hoped he could offer a unique perspective, a first-hand account of the investigation that might hold clues overlooked or forgotten over time. She found his cabin tucked away at the end of a long, rutted driveway, a rustic structure built of logs, smoke curling from its chimney, promising warmth and a respite from the chill. Reed greeted her at the door, a tall, lean man with weathered features and eyes that held a hint of weariness. He invited her in with a gruff but polite demeanor, the cabin's interior reflecting his solitary life. Simple furniture, a well-stocked bookshelf, and the omnipresent boxes of files. "So, you're the podcaster," Reed said, gesturing for Emily to sit by the crackling fireplace. His voice was raspy, tinged with the quiet solitude of the mountains. "Young woman, digging up old bones." Emily smiled. "I prefer to think of it as giving a voice to the voiceless detective. Trying to find some answers after all these years." Reed chuckled, a dry, humorless sound. "Answers are a funny thing. Sometimes you chase them so hard you forget the questions." He settled into a worn armchair, his gaze drifting to the boxes of files stacked against the wall. "St. Cecilia's," he murmured, his voice losing its edge, becoming almost reflective. "That case, it stayed with me." For the next few hours, Reed recounted his memories of the investigation, his words painting a vivid picture of the confusion and frustration that had gripped the community. He described the initial, frantic search, the meticulous combing of the Abbey grounds, the interviews with the distraught remaining sisters and the bewildered locals. "We looked everywhere," he said, his voice heavy with the weight of those fruitless searches. "Every room, every corner of that Abbey. We even brought in dogs, thinking maybe they'd wandered into the woods, but there was nothing, not a trace. He spoke of the lack of evidence, the absence of any sign of forced entry or struggle, the eerie vacuum left by the nuns' disappearance. It was like they just vanished, he repeated, the word hanging in the air like a ghost. Emily listened intently, her fingers flying across her notepad, capturing every detail, every nuance in Reed's voice. She asked about the theories, the rumors, the dead ends. Reed addressed them all with a weary honesty. "We considered everything," he admitted. "Runaways? Possible, but unlikely. These weren't women who seemed unhappy or unstable. Abduction? Maybe, but there were no witnesses, no vehicle seen, no ransom demands. Foul play within the Abbey? We looked for signs of conflict, but found nothing concrete." He paused, his gaze fixed on the flames in the fireplace. The official explanation, the one we eventually settled on, was a bear attack. Emily frowned. A bear attack? But I read that there was no evidence. Reed nodded. Exactly. No bodies, no torn habits, no blood, nothing. But the forest is full of wildlife. It was the only thing that made a shred of sense, even if it felt incomplete. He leaned forward, his eyes intense. "You have to understand, Emily. In this job, you see a lot of darkness. But this case, it was different. It was like a hole, a void. It left you with this feeling that something was deeply wrong, something we just couldn't grasp." As the afternoon deepened, the shadows lengthening in the cabin, Emily felt a growing sense of unease. Reed's memories painted a picture of a mystery that defied easy answers, a puzzle with missing pieces that might never be found. "Do you think," Emily asked softly, "that the truth is still out there?" Reed looked at her, his eyes reflecting the flickering flames. "The truth," he said, his voice low, "has a way of surfacing, even after all this time. But are you prepared for what it might reveal?" As Emily delved deeper into the St. Cecilia's case, a recurring name began to surface in the periphery of her research. Arthur Craven. He was a recluse, an outsider who had lived in a dilapidated cabin on the outskirts of the town in the 1980s. The locals spoke of him in hushed tones, their accounts painting a portrait of a man shrouded in mystery and suspicion. Crazy Craven, they called him, though few could articulate precisely why. Some whispered of strange rituals performed under the full moon, others of a dark past he was trying to escape. The more charitable souls described him as simply eccentric, a loner who preferred the company of the woods to that of people. Emily found his presence woven into the fabric of the time, a thread of unease in the otherwise ordinary tapestry of the town's history. He was mentioned in old police reports, not as a suspect, but as someone interviewed during the initial investigation. His cabin had been searched, though nothing of significance was found. Yet, it was in the local gossip, the whispers passed down through generations, that Emily sensed a deeper connection. The townsfolk's fear, their reluctance to speak his name, suggested a lingering suspicion that went beyond mere eccentricity. Old Mrs. Abernathy, her memory sharp despite her 90 years, recalled him vividly. "He had these eyes," she said, her voice raspy, like a cornered animal, always watching, but never engaging. The teenagers of the time, fueled by a mixture of fear and bravado, would dare each other to approach his cabin, their stories growing wilder with each retelling. They spoke of strange symbols carved into the trees surrounding his property, of eerie lights flickering in his windows late at night, and of unsettling sounds emanating from within. Emily, ever the pragmatist, initially dismissed these accounts as the exaggerations of small-town folklore. But as she pieced together the timeline of Craven's presence with the events surrounding the nun's disappearance, a nagging question began to form in her mind. Could this outsider, this figure of local suspicion, hold a key to unlocking the truth? She discovered that Craven's cabin was located relatively close to the Abbey, a fact that added a layer of intrigue to his potential involvement. The dense woods that separated their properties could have easily concealed clandestine movements, secret meetings, or something far more sinister. Emily's journalistic instincts were piqued. She felt drawn to this enigmatic figure, sensing that his story, however unsettling, might be crucial to understanding the mystery of St. Cecilia's. She decided to track down any remaining information about Arthur Craven, to separate the fact from the fiction, and to determine whether the whispers of the past held a clue to the silence that still haunted the present. Emily's research took an unexpected turn when she stumbled upon a forgotten artifact tucked away in the dusty archives of the Historical Society. It was an old map of St. Cecilia's Abbey, hand-drawn on parchment, its edges frayed and brittle with age. The map depicted the Abbey's layout in intricate detail, labeling each room and building with elegant calligraphy. As Emily carefully unfurled the map, her eyes scanned the familiar landmarks: the chapel, the refectory, the gardens. But then she noticed something peculiar. In a secluded corner of the Abbey grounds, nestled behind the library, was a small, unlabeled structure, its outline faint and almost obscured by the faded ink. Curiosity sparked within her. This structure was absent from all the official blueprints and architectural plans she had examined. It was as if it had been deliberately erased from the record, its existence intentionally concealed. Emily traced the outline of the mysterious structure with her fingertip, her mind racing with possibilities. Could it be a hidden room? A secret cellar? A forgotten archive? The implication sent a shiver of excitement mixed with trepidation down her spine. She cross-referenced the map with other historical documents, searching for any mention of this hidden space. She pored over old journals, letters, and even the Abbey's financial records, hoping to find a clue, a whisper of its existence. But her efforts yielded nothing. The secret remained stubbornly buried in the past. The more Emily pondered the map, the more convinced she became that this hidden structure held a key to the mystery of St. Cecilia's. Its deliberate omission from official records suggested a clandestine purpose, a secret that someone had gone to great lengths to protect. The thought of a secret room within the Abbey walls, a place where secrets could be kept and truths concealed, ignited Emily's imagination. Could it be connected to the nun's disappearance? Could it hold the answers she had been searching for? Emily knew she had to find a way to explore the Abbey grounds, to search for any trace of this hidden structure. But the Abbey was now private property, its grounds off-limits to outsiders. She would have to find a way to gain access, to penetrate the silence that guarded the secrets of St. Cecilia's. Emily managed to secure permission to visit the former Abbey grounds through a combination of persistence and a bit of strategic storytelling. She contacted the current owner, a real estate developer named Julian Thorne, explaining her podcast project and emphasizing her grandmother's deep connection to the place. Thorne, a man more interested in historical preservation than he initially let on, was intrigued enough to grant her access, albeit with strict limitations. "You can walk the grounds," he'd said over the phone, his voice surprisingly warm. "But the main house is off-limits. Understood?" Emily agreed, her heart pounding with anticipation. The Abbey, or what remained of it, was now part of a sprawling estate, the original buildings incorporated into a modern, somewhat sterile complex of luxury apartments. The chapel had been converted into a common area, its stained glass windows replaced with sleek, minimalist panels. As Emily walked the manicured lawns, she felt a strange disconnect. The echoes of the past were faint, almost imperceptible beneath the veneer of contemporary design. Yet she pressed on, her eyes scanning the landscape, guided by the old map she had brought with her. It wasn't easy. The original layout of the Abbey had been significantly altered. Where the map showed gardens, there were now paved walkways. Where the nuns' living quarters had stood, there was a parking lot. But Emily persevered, her determination fueled by the possibility of uncovering a hidden truth. Finally, after hours of searching, she found it. Behind a cluster of newly planted trees, she noticed an irregularity in the ground, a subtle depression that didn't quite fit with the surrounding landscaping. Carefully, she cleared away the loose soil and overgrown weeds, her fingers trembling with excitement. Beneath the surface, she found the remnants of an old foundation, a rectangle of weathered stones that outlined a structure no longer standing. It matched the location of the unlabeled building on the old map. This was it, the hidden room. As she examined the foundation, her gaze fell upon something glinting in the earth. Half buried beneath a layer of dirt and leaves, she found a small, tarnished silver locket. It was oval-shaped, its surface etched with intricate floral patterns. With trembling hands, Emily carefully opened the locket. Inside, nestled against faded velvet lining, were two tiny portraits. One was of a young woman with kind eyes and a gentle smile, her face framed by a nun's habit. The other was of a younger girl, perhaps a teenager, with a mischievous glint in her eyes and a cascade of dark curls. Emily's breath caught in her throat. She recognized the nun immediately. It was Sister Margaret, the Abbey's gardener, her face matching the faded photograph Mary, the diner owner, kept behind the counter. But who was the girl? A wave of dizziness washed over Emily as the implications of her discovery sank in. This locket, hidden beneath the foundation of a secret room, felt like a message from the past, a tangible link to the missing nuns. And it raised a chilling question. What other secrets lay buried beneath the manicured lawns of St. Cecilia's? The discovery of the locket sent Emily's investigation in a new, more personal direction. She realized that to truly understand the nuns, she needed to understand their lives outside the Abbey walls, their families, their pasts. This led her to Elizabeth Caldwell, Sister Anna's younger sister, the last living relative of any of the missing women. Elizabeth lived in a quiet suburban home on the outskirts of Baltimore, a small, meticulously kept space filled with antique furniture and faded photographs. She was a frail woman in her late 70s, her eyes holding a mixture of sadness and a quiet strength. Emily approached the interview with caution, aware of the delicate nature of her questions. She began by expressing her condolences and explaining her interest in telling the story of St. Cecilia's. Elizabeth listened patiently, her gaze distant as if lost in memories. Anna was always the strong one, Elizabeth began, her voice soft and slightly tremulous. Even as a child, she had this calling, this sense of purpose that I envied but also never quite understood. As Elizabeth spoke, a different picture of Sister Anna began to emerge, one that contrasted with the stern, almost ethereal image Emily had gleaned from the Abbey's records. Elizabeth spoke of Anna's rebellious youth, her love for dancing, and a brief, passionate romance before she entered the convent. She was so vibrant, Elizabeth recalled, a faint smile playing on her lips. Full of life and laughter. The Abbey changed her, I think. Or maybe it just brought out a part of her that was always there, waiting to be awakened. But as the conversation deepened, Elizabeth's tone shifted. She spoke of tensions within the Abbey, of disagreements between Anna and Sister Margaret over the Abbey's finances, and of a growing rift between Anna and Sister Clare, the youngest nun. Anna was strict, Elizabeth admitted, her gaze clouding over. She believed in discipline, in unwavering obedience. And Clare. Clare was different. She questioned things. She pushed boundaries. Elizabeth revealed that Sister Clare had been struggling with her vows, torn between her devotion to the church and her desire for a life beyond the Abbey walls. She had confided in Elizabeth about her dreams of becoming an artist, of traveling the world, dreams that clashed with the cloistered existence she had chosen. Anna saw it as a test of faith, Elizabeth said, her voice barely above a whisper. She believed that Clare needed to be guided, to be disciplined. The word hung heavy in the air, laden with unspoken implications. Emily felt a shiver run down her spine. The image of the serene Abbey, a haven of peace and devotion, was cracking, revealing a darker undercurrent of conflict and suppressed desires. Elizabeth also hinted at financial troubles within the Abbey. The once wealthy institution was struggling to stay afloat, relying increasingly on donations from a few key benefactors. This revelation added another layer of complexity to the mystery, raising questions about potential motives and hidden agendas. As Emily left Elizabeth's home, her mind raced with the new information. The interview had shattered her preconceived notions, forcing her to confront the possibility that the nun's disappearance was not as simple as she had initially believed. The silence of St. Cecilia's was not just a void. It was a wall, concealing a web of secrets, conflicts, and twisted truths that someone was desperate to keep buried, and Emily was determined to bring them to light. Emily's relentless pursuit of the truth led her to an unexpected corner of the investigation, the former Abbey's gardens. She sought out Thomas Bell, the elderly man who had been the head gardener at St. Cecilia's for over 40 years. He was a quiet, unassuming man, his hands gnarled and stained with earth, his eyes holding a lifetime of memories. Thomas lived in a small cottage on the outskirts of town, surrounded by a riot of colorful flowers and fragrant herbs. He was initially reluctant to speak, his voice hesitant, his gaze often drifting away as if trying to avoid painful recollections. "The sisters," he'd said, his voice barely a whisper, "they loved this garden. Sister Margaret especially. It was her sanctuary." Emily spent hours with Thomas, patiently coaxing him to share his memories of the Abbey and its inhabitants. She learned about the rhythm of the seasons, the delicate balance of the ecosystem within the garden walls, and the quiet companionship he had shared with Sister Margaret. But it was during a seemingly casual conversation about a rare species of rose that Thomas's demeanor shifted. His hands began to tremble and his eyes filled with a deep, unsettling sadness. "There was a secret," he confessed, his voice thick with emotion. "A secret we kept hidden for so long." Emily leaned forward, her heart pounding. "A secret, Thomas, about the nuns." He nodded slowly. "About the night they disappeared." He revealed that on the night of the disappearance he had been working late in the greenhouse, tending to some delicate seedlings. He had seen something, he said, something he had never told anyone. "I saw them," he whispered, his voice hoarse. "Sister Anna and Sister Claire, they were arguing by the old well." The old well. Emily remembered seeing it marked on the old map near the hidden structure. A chill ran through her. Thomas recounted a heated exchange, their voices raised in anger, their words indistinguishable in the night air. He had been too far away to hear what they were saying, but the intensity of the confrontation had frightened him. "Anna, she was so angry," Thomas recalled, his eyes wide with a lingering fear. "I had never seen her like that." Then, he said, he saw Sister Anna push Sister Claire. Claire stumbled backward towards the well. Thomas, horrified, had turned away, unable to watch. When he looked back moments later, both women were gone. He had waited, trembling, for what felt like an eternity, but they never reappeared. Fearful and confused, he had fled, swearing himself to secrecy. "I was afraid," he confessed, tears streaming down his face. "Afraid of what I had seen, afraid of what it meant." Thomas's confession sent shockwaves through Emily. It confirmed the tensions within the Abbey that Elizabeth Caldwell had hinted at and placed Sister Anna at the center of a disturbing event. But it also left crucial questions unanswered. What happened after the argument? What became of Sister Claire? And what about the other two nuns, Sister Margaret and Sister Emily? Thomas had seen nothing of them. His confession was a breakthrough, a crack in the wall of silence, but it was far from the whole truth. The mystery of St. Cecilia's remained, darker and more complex than ever. Thomas Bell's confession had given Emily a crucial piece of the puzzle, but it also deepened the mystery. The argument by the old well, the disappearance of Sister Anna and Sister Claire, it all pointed to the hidden structure on the old map. Emily knew she had to find a way to access it. The problem was access. The former Abbey grounds were now Julian Thorne's private property, heavily secured with fences and surveillance. Emily spent days studying the layout, searching for a way in that wouldn't involve trespassing or risking a confrontation with Thorne. She revisited the Historical Society, poring over old photographs and documents, looking for clues about the hidden structure's purpose and potential entry points. She discovered that the Abbey had undergone several renovations over the years, each one altering the original layout. Then she found it. A faded architectural sketch from the 1920s, depicting a network of underground tunnels connecting the Abbey's main buildings. One of these tunnels, she realized, might lead to the hidden structure. The sketch showed an entrance to the tunnels in the Abbey's old library, now Thorne's private study. Getting into the study was a challenge, but Emily was resourceful. She contacted Thorne under the guise of a historical researcher, requesting access to the library to examine some rare books supposedly stored there. Thorne, still intrigued by Emily's project and perhaps a little flattered by her interest in his collection, agreed to a brief visit. On the appointed day, Emily arrived at the estate, her heart pounding with a mixture of excitement and nerves. While Thorne showed her the books, Emily discreetly scanned the room, her eyes searching for any sign of an entrance. Behind a heavy bookshelf, she noticed an uneven section of the wall, a subtle discoloration that suggested a hidden door. When Thorne briefly left the room to answer a call, Emily seized her chance. She carefully pushed against the section of the wall, and to her surprise, it swung inward, revealing a dark, narrow passage. Without hesitation, Emily slipped inside, the hidden door closing silently behind her. She found herself in a dimly lit tunnel, the air damp and heavy with the scent of earth and decay. Armed with a flashlight, she followed the tunnel, its twists and turns guiding her deeper beneath the estate. The tunnel sloped downwards, the temperature dropping with each step. The walls were rough-hewn stone, and the silence was broken only by the sound of her own footsteps echoing in the darkness. After what seemed like an eternity, the tunnel opened into a larger chamber. Her flashlight beam revealed a circular stone structure, its center dominated by an old, bricked-up well. This was it, the hidden structure from the map. A sense of unease washed over Emily. The air in the chamber was thick with a feeling of age and secrets. She could almost feel the weight of the past pressing down on her. As she approached the well, she noticed something carved into the stone surrounding its opening. A series of symbols, strange and unsettling, their meaning unknown. Emily felt a growing sense of dread. She had found the hidden structure, but what secrets did it hold? And what darkness had been concealed within its walls for all these years? A wave of apprehension washed over Emily as she stood in the hidden chamber. The secrets of St. Cecilia's heavy in the air. The strange symbols carved around the well mouth hinted at something sinister, a darkness that contradicted the Abbey's facade of piety. Driven by a mixture of fear and determination, Emily began to explore the chamber. Her flashlight beam danced across the rough stone walls, revealing a small wooden chest tucked away in a corner. It was old and ornate, its surface covered in intricate carvings and secured with a rusted latch. With trembling hands, Emily forced the latch open. Inside, nestled among faded velvet lining, she found a collection of personal items: a silver crucifix, a rosary, a small leather-bound book, and a folded piece of paper. The crucifix was simple but elegant, its design suggesting it belonged to one of the nuns. The rosary was made of smooth, dark beads, worn smooth with years of use. But it was the book and the paper that sent a chill down Emily's spine. The book was a diary, its pages filled with delicate handwriting. As Emily carefully turned the pages, she realized it belonged to Sister Claire. The entries detailed her struggles with her faith, her growing doubts about her vocation, and her increasingly strained relationship with Sister Anna. The last few entries were frantic and fearful, filled with cryptic allusions to secrets and danger. One entry, written just days before the disappearance, read, "I can't stay silent any longer. They'll never let me leave." The folded piece of paper was a letter addressed to Elizabeth Caldwell, Sister Anna's sister. It was written by Sister Claire, and its contents were shocking. Claire accused Sister Anna of controlling the other nuns, of manipulating their finances, and of enforcing a strict regime that bordered on abuse. "Anna is not the woman you think she is," Claire wrote. "She's hiding something dark, and I'm afraid of what she might do." But the most disturbing discovery was yet to come. As Emily continued to explore the chamber, her flashlight beam fell upon a dark stain on the floor near the well. It was large and irregular, and its color was a deep, ominous brown. With a growing sense of dread, Emily knelt down and touched the stain. It was dry and flaky, but its texture was unmistakable. It was blood. A gasp escaped her lips as the implications of her discovery crashed down upon her. The hidden chamber was not just a repository of secrets, it was a crime scene. The personal items, the diary, the letter, the bloodstain, they all pointed to a violent confrontation, to a dark truth that had been buried beneath the Abbey for decades. The nuns of St. Cecilia's had not simply disappeared, they had been murdered. The gruesome discovery in the hidden chamber transformed Emily's investigation from a cold case into an active homicide inquiry. The evidence pointed to a violent crime, and after 28 years the silence surrounding St. Cecilia's was shattered. Emily meticulously reviewed her notes, piecing together the timeline of events, the clues she had uncovered, and the individuals connected to the Abbey. She began to narrow down the list of potential suspects, focusing on those with a plausible motive and opportunity. Arthur Craven, the recluse. Craven, the enigmatic outsider, remained a figure of suspicion. His proximity to the Abbey, his strange behavior, and the locals' lingering unease made him a prime candidate. Emily considered the possibility that Craven, driven by some unknown obsession or malice, had infiltrated the Abbey and committed the murders. However, there was no concrete evidence linking him directly to the crime. The police had investigated him in 1980 and found nothing incriminating. Was it possible they had missed something? Or was Craven simply a convenient scapegoat for the town's fears? Silas Redwood, the landowner. Redwood's hostility towards the church and his eagerness to erase all traces of the Abbey raised red flags. His ownership of the property, including the hidden chamber, gave him both opportunity and control over the crime scene. Emily wondered if Redwood's desire to acquire the land was connected to a darker secret buried beneath its surface. But Redwood had purchased the property 2 years after the nuns disappeared. Was it possible he had discovered the bodies and concealed them? Or was he somehow involved in the original crime, his purchase of the land a calculated move to control the narrative? Someone within the church hierarchy. Emily couldn't dismiss the possibility of involvement from within the church itself. The diary entries and the letter revealed tensions and conflicts within the Abbey, suggesting that someone within the religious order might have had a motive for silencing the nuns. The financial troubles of the Abbey also pointed to a potential motive. Could someone in a position of power have been involved in a cover-up to protect the church's reputation or to conceal financial improprieties? Other local residents. Emily also considered the possibility that someone else in the town, someone not immediately obvious, was responsible for the nuns' deaths. The passage of time had eroded memories and obscured details, but it was possible that a long-buried grudge or a hidden connection to the Abbey held the key to the mystery. As Emily delved deeper, she realized that the truth might be more complex and unsettling than she had ever imagined. The silence of St. Cecilia's had concealed a web of secrets, lies, and betrayals, and the closer she got to uncovering the truth, the more dangerous her pursuit became. Emily's investigation led her down a dangerous path, one that culminated in a chilling confrontation with the killer. The evidence she had gathered pointed to Silas Redwood as the most likely culprit. His possessiveness over the Abbey grounds, his aggressive demeanor, and the discovery of the bodies beneath his property all painted a damning picture. Driven by a need for answers and a desire to bring justice to the murdered nuns, Emily decided to confront Redwood directly. She knew it was a risky move, but she felt compelled to face him, to force him to confront the truth. She returned to his estate, this time bypassing the main entrance and finding a secluded path through the woods that led to his property. The air was thick with tension as she approached his imposing house, the silence broken only by the rustling of leaves and the pounding of her own heart. Redwood answered the door, his expression a mixture of surprise and annoyance. "You again?" he snarled. "I told you to stay away." Emily stood her ground, her voice firm despite the tremor of fear in her chest. "I know about the hidden chamber, Redwood. I know what you did to the nuns." Redwood's eyes widened in shock, then narrowed with rage. "You don't know anything," he hissed. "You're trespassing. I'm calling the police." But Emily was prepared. She presented him with the evidence she had collected: the diary, the letter, the photographs. "They were going to expose you, weren't they?" she accused. "They knew about your secrets, about why you really wanted this land." Redwood's facade crumbled, his face contorted with a mixture of fear and fury. "They were interfering," he spat. "They threatened to ruin everything." He confessed to killing the nuns, revealing a twisted motive rooted in greed and a desire to protect his family's dark legacy. The Abbey grounds, it turned out, held a valuable secret, a hidden treasure that Redwood's ancestors had sought to exploit. The nuns had stumbled upon the truth, and Redwood had silenced them to protect his inheritance. As the truth spilled out, Redwood's rage intensified. He lunged at Emily, his eyes filled with a murderous intent. A desperate struggle ensued, a chaotic dance of desperation and survival. Emily, though smaller, was agile and resourceful. She used her knowledge of the terrain to her advantage, leading Redwood on a chase through the dense woods surrounding his estate. The pursuit was relentless, a harrowing game of cat and mouse with life-or-death stakes. The chase culminated in a tense standoff at the edge of a cliff overlooking the forest. Emily, battered and bruised but defiant, faced Redwood, the killer's motives laid bare, the truth finally exposed. In a final act of desperation, Redwood made a fatal mistake, his own greed and violence leading to his downfall. Justice, after decades of silence, was finally served. The confrontation with Redwood shattered the silence that had shrouded St. Cecilia's for decades. The truth, once buried beneath layers of deceit and time, was finally brought to light. Redwood faced the consequences of his actions. The evidence Emily uncovered, combined with his own confession, led to his arrest and conviction. The weight of his crimes, the lives he had stolen, finally caught up with him. Emily, though shaken by her ordeal, found a sense of purpose in her work. She released her podcast, The Silence of St. Cecilia's, meticulously detailing her investigation, the evidence she uncovered, and the dark secrets of the Abbey's past. The podcast became a sensation, captivating listeners with its gripping narrative and the haunting mystery at its core. It brought national attention to the long-forgotten case, forcing the world to confront the tragedy that had been hidden for so long. The impact on the local community was profound. The revelation of the truth brought a mixture of shock, grief, and a strange sense of catharsis. The silence that had hung over the town, a constant reminder of the unanswered questions, was finally broken. For some, it reopened old wounds, forcing them to confront the pain and loss they had carried for years. For others, it brought a sense of closure, a chance to finally understand the events that had haunted their community. The story of St. Cecilia's became a symbol of the power of truth and the enduring impact of the past. It showed how secrets, no matter how deeply buried, can eventually surface, and how the pursuit of justice can bring healing to even the most wounded communities. Emily's work was far from over. There were still lingering questions, unanswered threads in the tapestry of the past. But she had broken the silence, and in doing so she had given a voice to the voiceless and brought a measure of peace to those who had long suffered in the shadows of St. Cecilia's. The Abbey, forever marked by its history, stood as a reminder of the darkness that can lurk beneath the surface of even the most sacred places. But it also stood as a testament to the resilience of the human spirit and the enduring power of truth to overcome silence.